In my last video, I had just gotten back from picking up my custom seat build for the Triumph Scrambler 400X, and I was planning to get out and ride the very next morning. Well, I'm happy to say I actually made it. Now, this year has been strange and unsettling as far as motorcycle travel goes. When I picked up the Scrambler in January of 2025, I had every intention of putting on a lot of miles before I headed out for my big trip of the year to Nova Scotia. And while the weather in March was pretty good, April and May turned into mostly a washout. In May, I was able to take the Tiger 1200 to the Catskills before heading to Ireland. That was a non-motorcycle trip. And then after I got home from there, well, my mother came to visit for a couple of weeks. And then shortly after that, it was time for Kevin and I to head out and do the Four Corners tour of Nova Scotia. Now that's of course all good stuff, but still the Scrambler did not get much love. On top of all of that, we had a family tragedy, and again that drew attention away from more pleasurable things like riding motorcycles. I relay none of this as an excuse, it's just the way things worked out, and thus I am just now putting on the required 600 miles on the little Scrambler before taking it in for the first service. Yes, I know the first service is just an expensive oil change. I can already see the comments. But there is also a software flash that needs to be done, so my dealer gets to do the work. And to be honest, my time making videos and doing other projects around the home is more valuable to me than a few $100 that I will have to shell out. So today I finally jumped on the Scrambler to get that last 100 miles in before the first service. I am headed out to a location I went to earlier in the year, but my destination, the Freight House in Irving, Massachusetts, was closed. It was a Wednesday, and yes, they're closed on Wednesdays. I forgot to check the website. But today is Sunday, the day before Labor Day, so now I can ride out and get that tuna melt that I've been craving. My route out to the Freight House is one I have done hundreds of times. I will take back roads and a little bit of highway out to Oxford, Massachusetts, and then make my way over to Route 122 and up through Barre, Mass. I will follow 122 all the way to its terminus at Route 202. This is one of my favorite roads through Massachusetts. Along with taking this relaxing ride, the purpose of this video is twofold. One, I want to update you on the custom seat I had made at Atomic Cycle Works Garage down in Middlefield, Connecticut, but also to give you my initial impressions after putting 600 plus miles on this little Scrambler. Now actually, at the end of this day, I'll end up with about 700 miles on the bike, and I'll probably put a few more on before that scheduled appointment. Overall, I am very pleased with this little 395cc motorcycle made for Triumph by the Indian manufacturer Bajaj Auto. Some interesting facts about Bajaj are that they have a 75-year history and they have sold more than 18 million motorcycles in more than 70 countries, and today they are the #1 motorcycle exporter from India, as well as now being the primary stakeholder in KTM. Of course, none of this says anything about whether or not the Scrambler 400X is a good bike, but I thought it was very interesting information. For me, at 5'9" tall with a 31-inch inseam, I find the riding position to be comfortable and mostly upright. I have a slight forward lean, but it does not put any undue pressure on my low back, neck, or shoulders. We will put a few more miles on the bike, but moving the bars up and back might be something I will do in the future. As you already know, the seat left a little to be desired as far as I was concerned. I put the 700 miles on the Scrambler in 4 rides, 3 between 150 and 200 miles, and a couple of shorter loops around my local area. On the longer rides, after about 100 miles, I started to have some pain in my backside. That is what prompted me to seek out Eddie Barrett down at Atomic Cycle Works in Connecticut. or some custom restoration. Also, I wanted to change out that saddle cover, right? Although I know brown is somewhat classic for a scrambler, for me, it was just not a very attractive vinyl. The Scrambler 400X is meant to be a budget-friendly bike, listing at $55.95 at the time I bought it in January. Right now, I see they're up to $59.95. Now, even though the fit and finish on the motorcycle is pretty good, things like saddles or places manufacturers often cut corners. That brings me to why I decided to try a custom saddle. I want to be able to ride this bike all day. I understand that it is a small displacement, high revving bike that weighs just 395 pounds, and thus I do not expect it to have a big plush saddle, but I do want to ride as free of discomfort as I can. On this ride of right at 200 miles, I was able to do that. Of course, I did feel the seat by the end of the day, but it was not as painful as the stock saddle was. For my first ride, I would say the seat was about 50 to 60% better than the one provided by Triumph, which I think is a big difference. I also know that with all new seats, there is a break-in period, and thus I expect this one made by Atomic to get better with age. I will need to put a few more 100 miles or maybe even 1,000 miles on before I can really say one way or the other. One thing I did find very noticeable is that there is much less vibration in the saddle with the added gel padding. I also need to be honest with myself and admit that no matter what, at my age, 66 years, I may just have a 200-mile butt. And did I happen to mention that Eddie's work on these saddles, my two-piece saddle on this Scrambler, well, the seats are gorgeous. Well, here I am. I made it to the freight house, so it's time to eat that tuna melt. So I rode out here to the freight house in Irving, Massachusetts. You've seen this place on my channel many times. They have a great little cafe inside. They make some really great baked goods as well as fresh sandwiches. When I come out here, I typically get the tuna melt with onions and tomato, which is what I did again, and it's really good. One of my viewers suggested I try the chicken salad panini that he gets when he comes out here, but that's a specialty item that only the owner's wife knows how to make, so I couldn't get that today because it's a Sunday and she's not working. But had a great ride out here. Got to check out those seats. I now have my first 100 miles on the seat, and I have to say it is quite an improvement over the stock seat. I, of course, do have to shift around a little bit and stand up every once in a while. It is a motorcycle, and I am old. But overall, it's a great improvement, and I'm expecting it to only get better. A lot of bikes out today, but I'm expecting it to get better because, like anything, you know, when you first make it, it has to get broken in, has to mold to my backside. So eventually this will be like a good, baseball glove, and it'll get broken in and fit me perfectly. Now, of course, I have another 100 miles to get back home, so we'll see how it does then. And also, I'm going to take it up on that Vermont trip. So I'm going to reserve final judgment, of course, until I've had a chance to put on, probably a few thousand miles on it. After lunch, I backtracked on 122, headed back to Barrie. There I fueled up, but this time decided to take a different route home. I would travel another great road in Massachusetts, Route 62, which runs west to east from Barrie to the towns of Clinton and Hudson. From there, I would make my way over to Route 27 and eventually head towards home. And by the way, if you're interested to know, and I know some of you will be, this little Scrambler's been getting right about 60 miles per gallon. But let's get back to the bike. It's not something that is going to blow your doors off. After all, it is a 400cc motorcycle that makes 39.5 horsepower with 27.7 foot-pounds of torque. For the first 600 miles, you are supposed to keep the revs under 6,200 or the tach will start flashing at you. Given that peak power arrives around 8,000 RPMs, I have yet to be able to really find out what this single-cylinder machine will actually do. However, once you get it up out of first and second gear, the Scrambler does move along nicely. Cruising along on the back roads, it has no problem maintaining 50 to 60 miles per hour or even hitting 70 on the highway, staying under that 6,200 RPM limit. Boy, am I looking forward to getting rid of that restriction. One of the things that many 400X owners are doing is replacing the 14-tooth front sprocket with a 15-tooth. Reportedly, this lowers the RPMs at top speed and extends first and second gears, well, just a little bit. At this point, I have not made this upgrade and I'm not sure that I will. I am going to wait until that RPM restriction is removed and I can see how the bike truly performs. The Scrambler redlines at 12,000 RPM, so I can't see running out of lower gears. But I will hold my judgment until I can fully test the bike. Another thing that some are complaining about are the brakes. Scrambler owners are changing the front pads to the centered pads, that's centered with an S, that are found on the Speed 400. Now, so far, I have not found any issues with the Scrambler's brakes, so while I may make this upgrade when it is time, at this point, it's not a priority. Riding a smaller bike like the Scrambler 400X is a fun and low-stress experience. Being as light as it is, you don't have to worry about where you park it, and it's easy to turn around in tight places. Given that it is a 19-inch front wheel, to give it that Scrambler look, it does turn a little bit slower than its sibling, the Speed 400, but still, it handles very well. The Scrambler 400X comes with the Metzeler Karoo Street tires, and so far, they have worked very well. But we'll see how they wear over time and what kind of mileage I finally get. Now also, I have found the suspension on the 400 to work very well, at least for street riding. I mean, I'm a heavy guy, I go more than 200 pounds, and it works pretty well. Now, I can see that some people might find it lacking a little bit if you're going to do off-road riding with this Scrambler. There are upgrades from companies like Rally Raid, but you're going to spend, well, another half of what this bike costs just to upgrade that suspension. And I don't know, that seems like money not so well spent to me. The next test for this little bike is to take it on a longer trip. And I'm going to do that in just a couple of weeks. I'm headed up to Vermont for a 4-day adventure, riding the great back roads of Vermont and New York. While I'm looking forward to this trip, it does bring up another challenge, figuring out how to carry all my gear on this 400cc motorcycle. But that is a good problem to have. Well, we'll just see how it all goes. All right, guys, continue riding safe and keep squeezing your lemon.